Your moment. I always say that we never stop coming of age. Whether you're 14 or 40, you're still dealing with issues of identity. Who am I right now? Where do I fit into the world? What's important? And so I think that that's why we're drawn to coming of age stories. So, and I'm no exception. I love those. The story that meant the most to me when I was a teenager was Catcher in the Rye. That book was my jam, man. I read that and I felt this intense love for that book, and I'm going to kind of just try to forget the fact that it is the preferred tome of serial killers and stalkers. Let's just gloss over that. YA often wore its heart on its sleeve, and that made it accessible to me. But I do think it's that coming of age thing that I find so attractive, and apparently lots of other people find it attractive too. Dude, I could fairly find matching shoes to wear to this thing. It really depends on the book. I obviously knew a little bit, I kind of knew where Going Bovine was going. I knew kind of where that was going to lead. But other times I have no idea. That has come back to bite me in the butt too, because let me just suggest that if you're going to write a trilogy, it's good to have a few things mapped out, because sometimes what happens is you get to that last book and you're standing in the corner with a paintbrush on the freshly painted floor going, oh man, there's the door. And then you're coming up with a Rube Goldberg contraption of a plot just to get you to the door. So with Diviners, I actually know where I'm going. I don't know everything. I don't know every place that I'm stopping along the way, but I know where I'm driving. I never thought about being a writer. Obviously, my mother was a huge influence on me. My mother was a high school English teacher for 30 years, and I think that it was the fact that she was so passionate about reading and about books. That's contagious. And many of the books that I ended up loving so much were given to me by my mother. Even as a teenager, when she would come in and say, you know, you should read The Bell Jar. And I would go, it's like I couldn't even answer her. You know, like, would you like to? So clearly she was a huge influence, and I grew up in a family in which reading was very important. And I had a sixth grade teacher named Mrs. McBee, who was probably the first person who got me to really enjoy writing. And my high school English teacher, Willa Mae Burlage, was a huge influence as well. But honestly, I had never thought about being a writer, even though I was doing lots of writing. And it was actually, when I was 18, I had a really serious car accident. And I demolished my entire face and lost my left eye. And this was right before I was going to college. So that first year of college was really rough. And the way that I got out of it was to journal, was to just write my way out of it, because I always say, and I mean this sincerely, that writing can save your life, because it did save mine. And that was really what did it for me, was just the desperation. We brought it down now. Tony, let's bring it up a little. Tie a yellow ribbon around you. Okay, thank you. Nice to see you. Look beautiful. About her end, Taylor Renee Crystal Hawkins, Miss Texas. Hey, y'all. How she connects to my roots. Well, I am from the hometown of two Miss Americas. Hey, y'all, far up. I did grow up in Denton, Texas. And it is the hometown of two Miss Americas. Miss America was really almost like vocational training in my hometown. My hometown is like Tatooine with a Walmart. And yeah, so I knew a lot of tailors, but the thing about Texas women that I kind of love is that there is this double-edged sword between like, oh my gosh, y'all, well, we're just not going to get down in the bummer basement where things are all creepy, just buck up. like, oh, I love what you're wearing, that's so cute. Jesus loves you. And there is that, but there is also this like, I'm reminded of this show that used to be on called Designing Women, and there was an actress, Dixie Carter, and there was one episode of that show where she was very elegant and southern, and she got really pissed off. And she gives this monologue that builds and builds and builds, and all I know is that it builds to a climax where she says, and that was the night that the lights went out in Georgia. And she walks off. And it's like the most perfect exit line ever, but it's just like that kind of southern grit. And I kind of love that about Texas women because you've got both. And I think that Taylor is both a cautionary tale and a love letter to women I grew up with in Texas. About the editing process, my editing process, or the poor editor who has to edit me process. My specific, it is to write and write and write and write. There is a wonderful YA writer, her name is Jennifer Jacobson, great writer, you should check out her books. And she said something one time that has stuck with me over these many years. And she said that when she sits down to write, she asks herself again and again, is it true yet? And another friend of mine who's also a wonderful writer was talking about a book one time, and she said, I feel like it didn't cost the writer anything to write it. And those are the things that I keep in my head because I feel like that's really what the editing process is about. It's about just continuing to listen to the page and figure out what my story's about and kind of dismantle all of my defenses and get down to what really matters and to put some marrow on the page. And that's really the editing process for me. The rest is, of course, working with a wonderful editor. I have Alvina Ling edited this book. She's terrific. And she put me through my paces, and she would come back and say, can we tighten a little more here? You know, this section feels like it drags just a little. Can you refine? Can you refine? Sometimes when an editor comes back to you and says, can you tighten here? And you end up writing more, but you end up taking out from somewhere else because you realize that what's happened is that the heart of that piece isn't there and that you need to kind of flesh it out, but you need to tighten somewhere else. So it's, it's a mixed bag, but I'm lucky to work with a very gifted editor, and she keeps me honest. And then the other stuff is about just writing until you write down to the bones. Circus clowns, elevators, dolls, Republicans. Yeah, elevators really freak me out, and clowns and dolls. Those freak me out. I think, it's funny because I just had to write up a piece that was about my favorite horror movies of all time, and I classified them. And the way that I classified them was there's something like, dude, is it just me or are you a malevolent being? And that's things like The Thing, where you're kind of not sure about your reality. But the ultimate to me was, dude, it's the big D, we are screwed. And that was any kind of thing that had to do with satanic forces. For some reason that scared me when I was a kid, because I would have this system of logic for me that went, okay, if I can outrun you, outthink you, outbludgeon you, then you're not that scary. But it's like, dude, The Exorcist? Man, you were going to be falling out a window in Georgetown. Game over. Just like, what do you have? Come on, man. Owns all. What am I supposed to do with that? So I do find that scary, but mostly, honestly, I think back to my favorite Twilight Zone episode, which is The Monsters Are Due on Maple Street. And so it's really about the monstrous things that human beings do. I find that scarier than any kind of made-up monster.